Hi guys, today I'll be mounting a whiteboard and I will explain how it is mounted. This is the whiteboard that I got and I want to mount it. So the first thing before you start doing it is to see where you're going to place it. Where exactly and how exactly are you going to place it. And for that, it's a good idea to make some kind of a mock-up. This is just as an example, but generally you can make something that's light and easy to hold up against the wall. You can cut out like 4 pieces out of something like this or some cardboard, then measure the complete size of your whiteboard and using a tape measure like this, and place it so that it covers the area where you want to mount it, the 4 corners, and see whether you can easily access it and whether it sits where you like it to be seated and how it looks in the area. If you have some assistance, of course it's even more easy to just have someone hold up the whiteboard and move it until you say yes, that's perfect position. But if you don't, you can use some tape for like sticky tape and just tape some mock-up on the wall and see what it looks like, because the whiteboard is a bit more heavy, so you cannot hold it in place with sticky tape. So that's the first thing, to measure how high and to which left and right position you want it placed, and to see where it ends below. That's also important and should be considered. Here, for my intended use, I will make some more theoretical boring videos, and I thought having a whiteboard to draw something is a pretty neat idea. We'll see how it shows in practice, but for my use I wanted to place it at 190 centimeters height to start, so it ends up at about my waist height, and that should fit into the screen when I'm showing and explaining something. So it was a very simple decision. And when it comes to left and right positions, I chose to start from about 10 centimeters away from this, and so it ends up about here, because it's 120 centimeters long, and so it should end up about here, and that's good. And when you're mounting it against on a wall, if you have some of those plaster walls, then you can use the screws that are made for like self-cutting thread screws. I'll try to show what they look like. Amazingly enough, I haven't got any in the workshop at the moment. I will try to put a picture of what those screws look like, and they are okay. You can also try to figure out what, maybe consult with someone which kinds of screws are best for your wall if you're going to screw it directly into the wall without using any dowels or something like that. And also I think that it is a good idea to consider that those plaster walls often have some sort of wooden like brackets that hold them in place, and I prefer, when I'm mounting on walls like that, to figure out if I could use one of those and then screw a screw for wood into those, because I think it's a bit firmer and holds better. But you need to be very precise in measuring and know exactly where those are placed, so it's tricky. This is what a screw for wood looks like. In our country they are usually with Pozidriv head, which is far from perfect, but it does the job. And I've got a video explaining the different kinds of screwdrivers, Phillps, Pozidriv and JIS, and so I'll try to make that link to that video pop up someplace. And now, when you are using a wall that is made of bricks or something like that, or concrete, then you will be using this. In my country it's called tipla. I believe the English word is dowel, if Google didn't lie to me. You'll be using this and some matching screws. Which size should you use? In my experience, if you're not mounting anything heavy, so no bookshelves or something like that, 6mm holes for 6mm dowels work fine, with some 3.5 to 4mm screws width. And as for the length, you want to make sure that the screw goes all the way through the dowel and it has enough room to hold the material, whatever it is that you are mounting. This one is more than long enough. It will probably end up like this inside the wall, and this extra doesn't hurt. Just make sure when you're drilling a hole to make it as long as it's needed for whichever of these ends up being longer. When you're mounting something heavier, like bookshelves and similar, if a wall is of good quality, so it's not crumbling and anything, 8mm dowels with 6mm screws work fine in most cases. And for just extra security or for some very heavy stuff, I like to use 10mm dowels with 7 to 8mm thick screws. So that usually works best, and there's no use in using a screw that is too thin for the size of the dowel, or using one that is too thick. You will have problems and it will not be able to hold place. If the screw is too thin, it will be pushed out relatively easily. It will not create enough preload inside, enough force. And if the screw is too wide, it will start crumbling and moving the dowel inside the hole, and it will not hold. You can see that it has like these grooves that are for the start important to hold it in place as you're starting to screw it in, and then as you continue inside, it will become widened by the screw and push against the walls of the hole, and that is what keeps it in place. There are different designs of dowels. They work differently depending on which material exactly you are going to mount them in. So you can go to your local hardware store if there's anyone who knows what they're selling, ask for advice and tell them what you're planning to do, know the mounting method, how many screws are going to be used, how heavy it is going to be, are there going to be any sudden movements, pushes, pulls or something, is it going to be pulled away from the wall, that also makes a difference, and so on. That's like a general story. As for the tools for this operation, I will be needing a hammer drill to drill a hole in the wall. This one is very good, made by Bosch. It is an impact drill. I will need a 6mm drill bit. I'm mounting it, making sure it's seated properly. If you have an assistant, there's a good trick. Imagine this is a vacuum cleaner hose, okay, and this is a drill bit. So as you're drilling, because the drill will spin clockwise, holding the vacuum cleaner like this will make sure that you have minimal amount of things flying away, so you don't have to do a lot of cleaning. So this is the principle. Just use common sense and normal caution. Make sure that you are positioned stably when you're drilling and so on. You might need some ladder if you're to climb if you are drilling holes a bit higher, of course. This is handy for making sure that things are where you want them to be. A pen to mark things. This, I'm not sure what it is called. In my city it's called Wasserwaage. We borrowed that German words some, and this works a fairly simple principle in case someone doesn't know. If one end gets higher, this air bubble moves to that side, and when it's even, the air bubble stays in the middle, and this is for the other side. So there are different kinds of models and designs, but that is the basic principle. I like also using these like some sort of sharpened rod to mark a hole after I've marked it with a pencil. It's often easier to start. It's not really necessary, but it can make your life easier. I will also be using an electric drill as an electric screwdriver to make screwing in and out faster. And I use normal screwdrivers to start. I prefer that way. These are all Pozidriv bits that hold these screws well in place so they don't fall out. Of course, I will also be using a hammer to punch the dowels into the wall after I've drilled the hole. To make my life easier and have less cleaning, I will put something below to catch most of the debris. Okay, now I can start. I will start by measuring 190 centimeters from the floor. This is about it. And let's make it about 10 centimeters from this. Okay, this looks about right. I made like a cross in the wall, on the wall. Here on this whiteboard, the mounting system is such that you need to place holes in the ends, on the ends. So that's what I will be utilizing. And here, because I don't have an assistant, I will use a bit of hacking to make sure that it's level. But if you have an assistant, you can have the assistant hold this in place with this tool to make sure it's level, and then mark all the holes and you're good. But if you're doing it alone, you might have to improvise by having it stand on something or like I'm about to do now. First I will mark this first one. Okay. Make sure this one is off, that I'm using the right direction, and plug it in. Okay, I'm placing it against the hole and pressing it in because this has a bit of play and I want that gone before I start. And then I will start gently turning it. And when it's a bit in, then I will put in the full speed. Another important thing, I almost forgot. If you have any sort of electricity, like inlets or something, electricity wires usually go straight up from the inlet. So if I had an inlet here, I would know that the electricity wire is probably going straight up, and then some 20 centimeters underneath the ceiling it goes in parallel all around, or to those boxes where it's all connected. So pay attention to that. Do not drill into the electricity wire, into an electricity wire, and create some damage, short circuit or anything. Same goes for any water pipes or heating pipes, whatever it is that you have in walls. So ask around, double check if you're not sure, but those are things to pay attention to. So here I know that there is nothing in my way. On this area I can go happy, drill happy. Another thing, you can use some tape. Here I use just my rough estimation, but you can use some tape to see how much of the length you need for drilling the hole. So if you mark it, you will see when you've drilled deeply enough and you don't need to go any further. So here I'm using this as the longest one of the two. Okay, so I've got a hole, 6 millimeters. Now I'll put in the first dowel. Pushing it with my thumb and then using the hammer. If you want to make sure the wall is clean of any stains, you can use a smaller hammer. Hold it against the dowel and punch it with a larger hammer. And don't leave your tools on the ground so you can step on them, like I just did. Didn't step on it but placed it on the ground so that I can. Alright. And now I will mount this temporarily to mark the other holes. I've got too few hands, so I will start like this. Lining it up and off we go. Okay. Okay, now for the second hole, I will try to mark it. This is magnetic, fortunately, like the board, so I will abuse that. I'm lining it up against the top, and now let's move it. This looks about right. And so for the second hole, I'm marking it, and I might use the opportunity to mark the other two holes as well, because with the assistance of that I can easily hold it in place. I didn't screw that all the way in. It's not creating any pressure. And now let's gently roll it back. Okay, I can now drill these two holes and then push it up to drill the last hole. I'm checking, double checking, measuring the distance between the holes and between what I've marked. Okay. And the other one, we'll get to that later. I'm using an impact drill, and the idea is to have the drill do the work, and I'm just applying some moderate pressure, not pushing it, because that makes it actually harder to work, and you can break the this if you are too strong, and especially if you put it at an angle. So the important thing is to hold it straight and hold it firmly, but not like too firmly, and do not push too hard. Just encourage it to go further. That's as much as it takes. Let's demonstrate the alternate procedure. Okay, it's flush. It's flush with the wall. Oh, and always have at least one extra of these, because they sometimes get a bit bent and you can have problems. It's Murphy's law. If you get just the right amount, you will need another one. Now for the last one. Okay, here it is. Do not try this at home. I'm a trained professional. This is generally not advised. I should have taken the board off, and I should do that. I should not be lazy. So I'm holding this with my body and my arm, and let's try to unscrew it. Okay. Tool tray. Every home should have one. Okay. Obviously, I wasn't holding it firmly enough. Okay. Now for the last hole. Now, why didn't I just use this along with some ruler and measure everything, all the other holes using that? Because in my experience that can be very tricky, and you can relatively easily make a mistake. I prefer to use whatever it is that I'm mounting with its mounting holes as a sort of a guide for marking the holes, and that's what I did on my own now without an assistant, in a bit clumsy way, but I think it will work fine. Now I need to align that one hole and get it started. Okay, that's one. And now the other one. Okay, now for the bottom too. Now before I completely assemble it, I need to mount this. This is engaged on the back side of the board, so I left some room from the wall to be able to put it beneath and just hopefully have it catch. Here it's seated and it can be moved left, right. Good. I also got these ridiculous quality and size along with these that are also not very promising looking, and these are just for decoration. Okay, I'll mount these later. Now let's finish this up. I'm trying not to put too much torque. You can feel it with your hand, how much is enough. I'm just getting them to reach the wall. I'm adjusting how much torque this should allow before it starts slipping, but for this case I'm stopping before it does. Okay, now for the final torque I prefer to use my feel. So here we go. Okay, this one is good. 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 Okay. Now for this, one. Okay, that's good. Now for these corners. Okay. Looks okay. Okay. Just using some soft cloth to clean it now. Here it is. Yeah, it works wonderfully. Thank you for watching and cheers. If you like this video, you can click on subscribe and choose this bell option, select all, so you get notified whenever I upload a new video.